How you doing, AP Psych? Welcome back to our final unit of AP Psychology, Unit 9, Module 9, however you look at it. And this is a two-part segment for Unit 9 on social psychology. Not quite as big as some of the other units we cover, but still a significant portion of the AP exam. So let's get rolling on social psychology. So social psychology is the scientific study of how we think, relate, influence to one another. So important, everything you do. You guys, especially high school students, socializing is very important to you. It's important to me. So social psychology studies about the mental processes and behavior of interacting with other people. All right. And there's some different terms in this theory about why people act the way they do. Example, attribution theory, the tendency to give a causal explanation for someone's behavior by crediting either the situation or the person's disposition. All right. So again, social psychology is so interesting, so relevant to today, especially in politics, in the news media. It's incredible. All right. So some social thinking errors, a fundamental attribution error, tendency for observers when analyzing another's behavior to underestimate the impact of the situation and to overestimate the impact of personal disposition. All right. So people can say that something happened for a reason other than the actual cause. Okay. And of course, this all relates to our attitude, how we react to people, events, and objects. All right. So in this Unit 9, social psychology, we're going to cover three very important figures in psychology. We're going to cover Solomon Asch and his conformity studies, Stanley Milgram's obedience studies, and Philip Zimbardo's Stanford Prison. Very cool stuff, and I'll get to more on that in a second. So, attitudes follow behavior. So, our attitude follows action. So, your actions influence behavior, and behaviors influence actions. It is a circle, especially when we interact with other people. A couple of influential techniques they use in business and social psychology overall is the sales techniques of foot in the door and the door and face phenomenon. The foot in the door phenomenon is the tendency for people when they agree to a small thing to be much more compliant to agree to something larger. This is when you go into Sam's Club or Costco and you sample a little bit and you're like, oh man, that's delicious. And then they have found out that when you do that little sample, you're more likely to buy that larger item. All right. Maybe in politics, you agree to sign a petition for a certain candidate. Well, you might find out a week later they call you and ask you to put a sign in your yard. By complying to that small thing, they are going for a larger request because you're more likely to comply with it. The door in the face phenomenon is opposite. You go to something extreme, but that's not really what you want. You want something small. You go to your parents and say, hey, mom, dad, we're going to Birkdale to watch a movie, get some snacks. Can I borrow $50? $50 just to see a movie? All right, well, how about 20? All right, I can handle 20. That is the door in the face phenomenon. You go with extreme, but that's not your goal. Your goal is actually something smaller. And here's a couple good videos on these techniques, some little skits, pretty funny.
Check this out.
All right. Cognitive dissonance, very important term in social psychology and in psychology in general. Cognitive dissonance is an imbalance. It's a discomfort that we feel when two of our thoughts are inconsistent. For example, if you are a spiritual, holy person and you put yourself into a position that maybe it's not so good, you're doing something inappropriate, whatever. Cognitive dissonance is that anxiety. So what people do is they change their attitudes and beliefs and behaviors in order to rationalize why they're in that setting. All right, why they're in that setting. So you may be that holy spiritual person who, you read the Bible all the time, whatever, and then you find yourself in a compromising, inappropriate situation, you'd be like, well, maybe I'm not that holy of a person after all, so that's why I'm here. Cognitive dissonance theory. All right, our first theorist in social psych, Solomon Asch. All right, the line on the left. One of y'all tell me which line matches it. You say 1, you're correct. Line 1. No, I'm wrong? Well, Solomon Asch did a study that found out in a group of people, if the majority of people give the incorrect answer, the single observer will match the group, even though they know the answer might be wrong. So Solomon Asch did studies on conformity, adjusting one's behavior thinking to coincide with a group standard. So check out this study. I got a couple links in here of recreations of this experiment. And he found out that in a group, about 30 to 60% of individuals will change their opinion based upon the group standard, even if they know that answer that they're giving, the group's given, is incorrect. They want to be part of the group. Normative social influence resulting from a person's desire to gain approval or avoid disapproval. Very strong. Peer pressure. It's a fact. Social psych documents that. And here's the example I was talking about in Asch's conformity study.
Run an experiment.
Oh, this is cool too. The waiting room. Watch this poor girl. She conforms after about 2 minutes. All right. Informational and social influence. Influence resulting from one's willingness to accept others' opinions about reality. The source. All right. It is crazy. Social media influences people. A lot of fake news, a lot of fake stuff out there. I go over at my civics class about the news media, what channels are inaccurate. And ironically, the two most popular channels, Fox News and CNN, Fox News especially being the most inaccurate news source with confabulated stories, CNN running a close second on opposite ends of political spectrum. Their news is not factual all the time, but you can find news sources that are factual. Okay. All right, our second guy, Stanley Milgram's obedience study. He wanted to find out why normal, compassionate, educated human beings could do terrible things to other humans. So he conducted experiments in the shock study. And I have a video for this too, but basically he found out about 60 to 65% of people will go to the extremes to hurt another human if they're being told to do so by an authority figure of a well-known institution. All right, check this out if you can. Stanley Milgram's obedience study. Why do people do horrible things? He studied it, and this is why. Here is some footage of the first actual experiment, and then I think I have a newer take on it. Same thing. And they replicated it for the most part. There are 9 subjects left. All right. Some more information on Mill experiment from Khan Academy. Very good stuff here. Please check this out to enhance your understanding of this. All right. So what Stanley Milgram found out, he found out that people comply when it's an authority figure, they're close at hand, a prestigious institution. In his case, Yale. Very, very well-known institution, and people took it to the extreme. They shocked the person even if it might have killed them. Now, they weren't really getting shocked, obviously, as you saw from the videos there. So check that out. Solomon Asch, conformity, Stanley Milgram, obedience, and social facilitation and social loafing. All right. This is another big point I want to talk about. Oh, I'm sorry. My bad. Social facilitation, improved performance on tasks in the presence of others. If you're a good athlete at something, when you're in front of a crowd, it's going to elevate your performance. Or if it's a simple task. Social loafing is the opposite. When you're with a group, people slack off. All right? It's just something that happens. And you guys know, you work in groups. When you're with a group, some of you are like, oh, I hate it because, Johnny and Sally aren't going to do junk. I mean, they're going to be lazy. And here's a chart on social facilitation in sports. Now, the next terms are going to relate directly to our final social psych person. We're going to talk about Philip Zimbardo and the Stanford Prison Experiment. De-individuation, the loss of self-awareness and self-restraint in a group situation that foster arousal and anonymity. Gang violence, mob mentality. Now, I'm going to point out something here. Last year, we saw some anti-government riots in the streets of major cities. De-individuation was huge. We saw the attack on the Capitol on January 6th. Those people they had no self-awareness individually. They were aroused by the mob mentality and the anonymity they thought they had, and actually did an unprecedented, terrible event on January 6th to our Capitol. All right. Cool trailer here for Stanford Prison Experiment. It's an actual movie that came out about 2015. Good stuff. All right. Continue on and enhance those points I made about the mob mentality, group polarization, the enhancement of a group's prevailing attitude through discussion within the group. If you're with similar minded people, it's going to escalate the group's beliefs. Groupthink, mode of thinking occurs when the desire for harmony and decision-making group overrides realistic appraisal of alternatives. Sometimes on a jury, people will come to agreement just because the group is so important. Prejudice, stereotype, obvious stuff. And finally, Philip Zimbardo. He talks about these social psychology terms in his experiment here, where students were paid money to be prisoners and guards in the Stanford prison experiment. Very cool stuff. Check it out. And we're going to wrap up part one right now. Mr. Gallagher, and I'm out.